Weddings-ish, 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 with Jove.
This episode is brought to you by Generation Tux, the perfect suit or tuxedo delivered straight to your door. GenerationTux.com. Well, hello. Thank you so much for tuning in to Weddings-ish with Jove, a podcast all about love, joy, and weddings-ish with a special guest each episode. I couldn't be more excited to be sitting down with the one, the only, the talented, lovely, and vivacious and bubbly. Can I say that?
Oh, no.
I know, you know what I mean? Like,
I go by Cheval now.
Okay.
But of course, you know, I can't give anyone permission to use my
your name. But how do you like to be? Cheval.
I feel like it's hard to put limitations on people.
Yep.
And I believe in freedom of speech.
Great.
But I also have my own situation, so I try to respect it.
Perfect. So for the purposes of the podcast, I will call you Cheval.
Perfect.
And it is wild because we sat down in 2016. You were one of my very first podcast guests at the launch way back when. And now we're here 6 or 7 years later.
Full circle.
Full circle.
It feels like 82 years.
Honestly. Well, you look amazing.
So do you.
Thank you. A lot has happened. And rather than rehash the old podcast, I think people should just go and listen to it. It's a great episode about your life, your family, your career, how you got started. I'll give a quick update just to catch people up who are lazy, but definitely go back and give it a listen. It's a really fun episode.
I love it.
It was in your office in the fashion district.
Yes.
With all your drawings and your beautiful dresses.
Sparkles.
But you're from California.
That's right.
Originally, you were, and I don't know if you still are, a gymnast.
It's in the soul.
It's in the soul, okay.
I like to tumble for you still.
There you go. You went to college in New York at Cornell.
That's right.
And you studied both fashion and science?
Yeah, pre-med.
I know. I can't even, it's like pre-med to wedding dresses is a whole other jump, which we talked all about. And design started as a hobby for you with your grandmother, if I recall.
Yes, good memory.
And then you made your first dress in like 2003 or 4.
Yeah, we go way back with the dress world.
Uh-huh.
I almost feel like I came out with a wedding dress on. I don't know. But it's always been my biggest dream.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so then right out of college, you were feisty and determined, and you got a job in fashion, not bridal, but in fashion in New York. And then made your way to Bridal, where you worked at JLM.
That's right.
Which we will get into. And then from there, last time we spoke, that's who your employer was. Things were going wonderfully, and you were married.
That's right.
And now you are not working there, and you are no longer married.
Correct.
Okay, so let's catch up to speed because
I've had some dress rehearsals.
A lot has happened in your life since I've seen you last. But through it all, before we get into it, you've always had such a positive, bright spirit, even as you share all of this like tumultuous journeys on the internet, which you've done so publicly. It's always been with such a kind and bright spirit. So I've always admired that about you. Where do you want to start, the love life or the work life?
Either one. I feel like this is your gig. I'll go with the flow.
Let's go chronologically.
Okay.
Which happened first?
Divorce.
Okay. So you had the job at JLM under your own name, your brand. A weird fact I remembered is you bought your own website like years before you started the brand.
Right. I was like 13.
Yeah.
And my mom was like, you should really go buy the www.yourname.com.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, Mom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm so glad
But you did.
I did. Yes.
Yeah. So you were hired for JLM after annoying them for 2 years to hire you.
Yeah, it was like over a year.
Yeah. And then you got in the door and then you started your own namesake brand.
That's right. I worked at a company called Priscilla of Boston, another big house of brands for almost 4 or 5 years. And then I kind of just knew I wanted to ringlead my own collection. And I think that's just a pinnacle of a lot of designer dreams.
Yeah, of course. See your name on the door.
It was a big deal. Yes.
100%. And then you also created a second line with them, Blush by which was a lower price point.
Correct.
More accessible line range. And so take me from there. When did things, the rumors I would say were that the contract was up for renegotiation. you wanted more than they were willing to offer. So it ended not amicably.
Yes, it's definitely a nuanced process, I would
Yes.
say. But I did sign an employment contract that
Yep.
was long term.
Yep.
And the way I kind of see it is at the time I was afraid that if I didn't, agree to everything or if I was combative at all, I would lose my opportunity.
Of course, because you're young
I was
and
young,
you're
yes.
eager.
Eager. And I knew that so many people wanted that chance.
Yes.
So I just felt like it's better to be a team player.
Yep.
And there was a rush element to it as well. And I felt pressured to sign. I didn't consult with a lawyer. And I just wanted to get to work,
It's
show
an
what I could do.
opportunity of a lifetime.
Yes.
And when you're presented with something like that at a young age, the feeling I imagine would be like, well, I have to say yes, because if not me, there's another girl behind me that will say yes.
Right.
And I will lose this moment.
Absolutely. You feel that. And there's naivety that's at play there. There's vulnerability. And there's also just, I think, a bit of a trust fall in assuming things will work out.
Yeah.
And if you're in a situation where you feel like somebody is going to take care of you or protect you,
They should.
I wear my heart on my sleeve.
Yep.
But I did get right to work. And it was a unique time in the industry and business in general because social media wasn't really around yet.
Yeah, it wasn't a thing.
And when my best friend in the whole wide world, she's like, you need to get on Instagram. You're so visual and you'll love it. I opened my account without thinking twice to use my name.
Because it's who you are.
And my cell phone.
And you opened it. It's
birth
yours.
date,
Yes.
Yes. And so I started that. And over time, I realized that it was a really cool way to connect with people and reach people who aren't in the room, you know, who aren't coming to the trunk shows. And I could share my life story, my vacations, my love interests.
And it was
everything.
a blend of both, unlike other people. You know what I mean? I don't want to say you were like an original influencer because I don't like that word, or content creator, but you had a beautiful balance of sharing your life and your work because they're so intertwined, and your dog, of course.
Yes.
You know,
She plays a big role.
Those are the three things that I feel like were always going on. And it was like, wow, this is how you've designed something, but this is also how you hang out at home or how you cook or how you vacation. Like, really felt like people knew who you were, which was a big part of the brand.
Yeah, and there's such an emotional connection with the wedding world that I feel like it's important to be sentimental and be emotional in your work. So I do that all the time, even creating now with shoes. But then this show called Say Yes to the Dress came around, and I was on that show, and it was an incredible experience.
Yeah.
And I think it helped contribute to the overall picture of the brand.
Yeah.
And of course, there was added visibility with that.
The brand is growing. You're growing.
Yes. And then I started actually doing a lot of posting and brand product placement things and just naturally including like my baking shows with my fiance and just doing a lot with the Instagram platform. And then, through the years, my contract, that original one, was up for renegotiation. It was coming to an end. And I really sought to come from a place of let's make this very specific.
Yep.
Because
let's clarify.
Yeah, there needs to be.
Brene Brown says kindness is clarity.
Yes, I love that. And that's exactly what I was looking for is when you have something that feels overbroad or circumstances that didn't exist at the time of signing need to now be factored in. Like, how do you do that? And I think this was really my first moment to be seen as a businesswoman and not just a young designer who wanted her dream.
Well, you had found some success, so your voice, you thought, mattered in the conversation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think ultimately their delta was so wide. And when you have that kind of scenario, you're not just dealing with a situation where there's a contract. You're dealing with a past and a history. And then you're also trying to figure out what you want for your future. And so all these multifaceted things are at play. And then you have personalities as well.
Yeah.
So it got pretty scary for a while.
Yep.
I think I was renegotiating for almost a year and a half, and then COVID had hit.
Behind the scenes while still working.
Yeah. And it was one of the harder times in my life, I would say, because I felt this real push and pull.
Did you lawyer up at that time?
Yes.
Okay. You were like, we're going in, we're going to do this the right way.
Exactly. And I definitely felt that it would work out in some respect. I mean, no work environment is perfect.
Of course.
And I think we all kind of build up our own tolerances to things. And whether it's an excuse or it's, the good outweighs the bad or whatever it is that you have those conversations in your head, I was still really optimistic. But I was also coming from a place of fear.
Of course.
And I felt really unsafe in a lot of ways. And ultimately, what resulted was a federal lawsuit in my hands. My former employer decided
that
to
you
sue
filed
me.
or they filed?
They filed against me.
Yep.
And it's almost 3 years to the day
Wow.
right now that we're recording this. I think it's the 14th of December.
Okay.
And I'll never forget what it felt like to be served in that way.
By your employer, but
right.
also your partner. You built
Yeah.
a brand together. There's no Hayley Paige without Hayley Paige.
I definitely agree with that sentiment, but I think too, trying to be as business oriented as possible.
Of course.
I tried to quickly remove the emotion from it.
Yep.
Because I knew that no matter what had happened, the moments I had shared with creatives like
Yep.
you and people along the way and these gorgeous brides in these stores and the dresses themselves, like I knew in that moment, nothing would ever change that for me.
Yep.
But
that doesn't go away.
It doesn't. It's there. But I knew that there would have to be a new landscape forward because there are certain things that can happen in your life where you just know there is no coming back from.
Yeah.
And for me, that was that moment. It was that I knew I would never actually be able to operate and
In
do
that
business
world.
in that kind of way.
Yeah.
Because I felt so attacked and so misrepresented.
Yeah.
And when something is happening in a federal court that doesn't reflect your actual experience,
Correct.
it's terrifying
Yeah.
because it's the law, right?
And it's also foreign. This
It
is not your world. You didn't go to law school. You didn't sign up for this. You want to make beautiful dresses for people in love. And here you are, it's wild.
And then you're guided by a sense of morality and also wanting to have justice in some way. So you have that automatic response to fight for yourself.
Yep.
But also, I think for me, because so much happened so quickly and I lost the right to use my birth name in any capacity of business or commerce or even to publicly identify.
What about your website?
So the website was something that was transactional in the beginning of that contract, that first contract back in 2011.
Gave it back to them.
It's actually really nuanced and I don't have the perfect verbiage for it, but they own it, right?
Okay.
And it was within the contract.
So that was theirs. But then your name is the biggest part that shocks everybody.
Yes. And I think with social media now, it's hard to imagine how you can show up there without it being promotional or in conjunction with something else. And so it's also not a lot of case law.
No, because it's all new. Social media
new.
is new. When you signed your contract, there was no Instagram clause, social media clause.
Yes.
You were marketing yourself to sell your brand, to make money for your business, which they also obviously benefit because there's a profit share going on here.
Yes.
So it feels like, it sounds like to me, they basically were like, you're out and we're going to make this as awful for you as we can just to prove a point.
I feel in that moment, it was hard to actually understand the motivation. And to this day, I don't spend too much time on it because it's now been, 3 years, but I'm still in the active litigation. And a lot of those restrictions that were originally put on me are still in place.
Yeah.
So the name usage, which is pretty frightening, but it felt so diluted to me.
Of course.
In my personal opinion, that I was like, I can just put this in a box over here because I find that to be absolutely absurd.
You can't even think about it because it's irrational and this is your birth name is on your birth certificate. Just to be clear for anyone who thinks otherwise. That's who you are. When I saw you today, I'm like, Cheval.
Yes. My family still does the same thing.
Yeah, so you put it in a box for your own sanity.
And then I thought, at some point I will have a new name because I have to identify somehow.
Of course.
And I saw that as an opportunity to be creative and how often do you get to rename yourself?
Of course, in life.
See it positively, right? And then the social media element was scary too because I had always believed that to be my personal account.
Well, and you built it yourself. And again, you signed up with your name, your birthday, all your personal information.
Right. And a handle name that I used since 2004 on Facebook.
Which is before you had signed a contract with them.
Yes.
And you also signed up, there was no business account at that time. They were all personal. They hadn't started advertising. Like now you can pick business or personal. But then I don't think you could have picked that.
In the very beginning, you couldn't.
Yeah.
And I know over time it's really changed, which is not really helping because now, when you're trying to educate and base it off of there no existing case law, it's really hard to say, go back 8 years,
You
10
can't.
years.
There's nothing.
And show, it's like you use archive.org all the time to say like, but look at here, look at here. So it's really interesting. But that was scary too, because the minute I had to turn over my personal password, there was posting to that account.
Yeah, that wasn't you.
That wasn't me. And it was so, I'll never forget the feeling of it, just like somebody taking my soul. Like that's how it's a visceral reaction you get. And then all my friends and family who didn't know yet, were still messaging me, and all these private conversations.
And you were very active. Like there are some brands who are humans on social media, but they're not really interactive. Like you had such a devotion to that account. Like if you got a message, you responded. If you got a comment, it was like your soul on the internet. It wasn't just like a business function where you're just like, new collection, 21, like here's my dress. Like it was you.
Thank you.
For the record, I unfollowed the moment I heard. I was like, doop, and block, goodbye. You will not get this follow from me.
It is crazy. And then there was a lot of silencing and blocking, and just the general behavior and tenor there, I think was, in my opinion, very tarnishing in the experience of it all, because I put so much of my soul into it. And I feel like, late nights answering DMs and just being present there, and all those unseen hours, all those undocumented hours, all those hours that weren't reimbursed as a business expense.
No, you're not paid hourly to do that.
Yeah, it is.
And what do social media managers get paid? Like a lot of money.
I
you weren't getting paid.
At this point, I don't know how much they get, but hopefully a lot, because it is such a job to do in itself.
100%.
But and then what happened kind of after that is, I kind of started a new Instagram, and started showing up in another area, our podcast account, which was All the Glitters on the gram.
Yep.
Which is now I've usurped it as like my personal account.
That's yours, yeah.
But I realized with the social, like I wrestled with it a little bit easier, because I realized that the energy and the effort you put in is really all that matters.
Yeah.
And like you showing up authentically is really all that matters. And there's vanity metrics and there's lots of followers that
of course
I feel like I'll never reach again.
Yeah.
But
that was also a special time.
It was.
Like you can't grow the same today as you could then.
No.
And you were really
Not
one
even
of the
close.
first in the wedding space, bridal particular, at the 1 million mark, right? Like I don't want to relive any of that for
honestly,
you, but like
I still see it as a big moment.
It is a milestone.
Yeah.
Like you did that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It was
and
very
you
special.
Should be proud of that. But so the website's gone, name's gone, social media's gone.
Yes.
And all the while you are documenting this on your new Instagram account very carefully.
Right. Transparency, key for me. I just wanted people to know what was going on, especially because the idea or the thought of somebody actually not knowing and wanting to be a part of that experience and that connection, and it not being a real thing.
And having the same thing happen.
I struggle. I really did. And then obviously I resigned.
Yeah.
There was a magnitude of things that went into that decision. But what ended up happening next is that I wasn't getting my commission.
For the previous collection.
Yes, that I believed the contract owed me.
Yes.
And so it's been since I think November of 2019.
Still no check.
Right, that I've never gotten that commission. And so that's been an element in this case too, where I've been, fighting for my monetary rights as well.
For the work you did before you ended.
Even before then. And even since then, and there's things in this contract that I feel, and even, my legal team feels, it's like it's there.
Yeah.
But the way it's being interpreted and enforced, it is what it is. It's just how it's taken form. And so I'm not getting the commission for dresses that are still being sold and manufactured and marketed.
They're still selling your brand today.
Correct.
And they have the right to do that in
Yes.
perpetuity.
Yeah. Oh, that's that word. I hate that
throughout
word.
the universe.
Now I hate it.
That's the sentence. In perpetuity throughout the universe. It's something you never really think about.
No.
Until you have to read it a couple of times.
Yeah. So now it's been 3 years.
3 years.
And I'm under the other part is that I'm under a 5-year non-compete, or a provision, basically, I should say, that I cannot identify to the trade as a designer in the categories my former employer manufactures and sells.
Which is dresses.
Which basically is I cannot identify as a wedding dress designer, publicly or in any facet, regardless of what name I use.
So goodbye your name, goodbye your training, goodbye your skills, your website and your social media. Just cut off your feet, your legs, and burn out your eyes and say good luck. I mean, really, that's what they've done. It's horrendous to think someone who built you up and supported you could treat you that way. But like the phoenix that you are, You have risen from the ashes. Tell me about the new name Cheval.
Cheval is the French word for horse. And honestly, it was a word I just love saying, and I felt like powerful saying it.
It sounds powerful.
I like it. And it's actually like a masculine pronoun in French, which I love because I'm such a girly girl. And so I was like, oh, I like it's this juxtaposition.
This opposite,
and,
yeah.
you know, it felt really strong and a sense of fortitude. And, you know, regardless of the circumstances and how I have felt in the situation, I did feel an accountability of you have to have these moments where you sit down and accept that there is something I did to make this happen. Like,
for sure.
And in my own suffering, I realized that I don't have to sit here and dwell and think about it. I can.
Well, you can. You won't be fruitful. Nothing will happen good for you.
Good
you
point.
could be depressed and sad and gain weight and eat your feelings.
Yes, which I did for a while. So.
100%. And I think grieving is different for everyone, and we all have periods of that.
Yes.
But eventually you got to
get up and
move on.
Pick yourself
Close
up
the
by
door.
your sparkle bootstraps.
That's right.
So that's what we did.
And that's what you did. So how shoes?
Shoes for me, I actually really went through a period of what am I going to be good at?
Yeah.
Because as a designer and when you have a craft and you're really invested in it, I think going into new territory, you don't have the education and the background and the dream orientation going all along.
Yeah.
Like, oh, I want to go into shoes.
Yeah.
I wanted to give myself time to understand it.
Okay.
And at least
to learn
it and feel like I was competent in it. So I just gave myself grace. And I said, I know I'm not going to be the best at it. I cannot compare myself to anyone that's
else.
already in that space doing amazing.
And it's a massive space.
It is huge. It's huge. And like the size runs and the inventory management and direct-to-consumer models versus wholesale. And
and you got a thin foot or a wide foot.
Whole and the anatomy of a shoe and the
sizing,
foot. And
all of it.
Yes,
all of it.
and you can't alter a shoe like you alter a dress.
Yes.
And you got to get the manufacturing right. And so it's been a really big learning curve, but it's also been an amazing challenge as a designer to learn and building that confidence along the way and going through that journey and that process of you actually can learn something new.
Yeah.
You know, teach an old dog new tricks.
There you go.
But yeah, and I had a lot of fun with it. I did tempt myself with other mediums.
Okay.
But nothing.
In your like exploratory phase.
I was like, oh, art, you know, or
like painting or sculpture.
Yes, stuff like that. Actually,
has this seen the
that's
internet?
weird that
I
you said
don't
sculpture
know.
because I definitely thought about that.
You thought about it? Well, because it's so romantic. The notion of being a sculptor, a potter, like. It's like so like, oh, I could do this and people will buy it.
Like
and
a
like
spin table.
Well, and Jonathan Adler started his business as a potter and now he's, you know,
So
he's
cool.
got massive business. Okay, so she tried to paint,
Yeah,
she tried to pot, and then
and the shoes.
was everyone like, maybe let's try something else?
No, that was
or
my own self
your
saying
own
that.
self?
I was like,
Okay.
do not do this.
Okay. Okay.
But I think with shoes, it felt like a product that could carry me places, right?
Yeah.
Physically.
Literally.
And when you see a woman walk into a room and she just lights up and she feels good about herself, a lot of times it has to do with how she's carrying herself.
Yes.
That she feels comfortable in what she's wearing and the shoes she's got on her feet
They
and all
add
this
to
stuff.
confidence 100%.
And I'm like, you know, every time I put on a great pair of shoes, my posture picks up.
Yep.
I feel like I'm commanding. I'm taking fresh steps. And I was like, I just love that mentality of it. And while it's not, you know, the love connection that you maybe get with a wedding dress, it's something to be appreciated. And so I loved that it had that extra meaning behind it.
Well, and a dress you wear typically once at your wedding, whereas shoes you're buying throughout your lifetime for different occasions, some of which are weddings, birthdays, celebrations, office parties, holiday, you know, like, so you have a consumer that you can still get to know, but over a much longer period as well.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I always used to say like returning customers in bridal is such a rarity, but it's so appreciated because after going through a divorce, I'm like, it's not a second wedding. It is just a wedding,
There
you know?
you go. Yes. And it's true.
But it's amazing
It's true.
to have that. But in shoes now, I think being able to cast a wider net and reach more women and kind of be a little more inclusive in that respect, I've really appreciated.
Yeah.
So
did you
good
start
business.
with sketching? Did you start with materials? Like how does your design process for shoes work differently from formerly with dresses?
Actually, the way you ask that question is really helpful because a lot of times people ask, you know, where's your inspiration from and design process. But I think when I first started, I actually looked to my own wardrobe.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked to what shoes I love wearing
Yep.
and which ones feel really special.
Yep.
So I didn't want to do something that felt like an everyday shoe.
You want an occasion shoe.
I wanted a special shoe.
She feels great when she puts it
a
on.
little floofy, something sparkly. Yeah.
That tracks, obviously, with you.
Like if it's a sneaker, it's a sparkly sneaker.
Yes.
You know, so I wanted that. And from there, I did lean into a lot of the education I had in design.
Yeah.
So when it comes to executing and understanding pattern work and how something's built, but with shoemaking, it's very different because there's a lot of hardware, different construction, and all of that was totally foreign to me. It was helpful that I got to meet with Stuart Weitzman, Stuart Weitzman.
Small
no big
name
deal.
drop here.
I know. Let me pick this up off the ground, Stuart Weitzman.
That's
through
incredible.
my mentor, and it was incredible because he like literally has an education.
Gave you a crash course in shoes
Couldn't
in
even
an
ask
hour.
for better.
Yeah.
I was such a nerd in that meeting, but
well, no, you came prepared because you knew the opportunity was valuable.
Yes,
you didn't just
incredible.
Like, hi, I like you.
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean? Yeah,
it was awesome. But yeah, it's been an amazing design process to go through. Picking and choosing things that did work for me, and then things that just totally don't work in the space. So.
That's wild. And you have a physical store front in New York City.
We do.
Which is amazing. Yeah. And you have online. So that's sort of, you launched online. Yeah. And then when did you open the physical storefront?
It was supposed to be just a temporary pop-up, which it still is. We were there for a year and we were supposed to be there for like a couple months.
Yep.
So it worked out well. And then we just popped up in a new location right around the corner.
Okay.
Again, temporary.
For the holidays.
For the holidays.
Yeah, why not?
Holly jolly.
Because these shoes are for celebratory moments.
Exactly.
So
Giddy up,
perfect gifts for other people.
Uh-huh.
I love it. Okay, so dresses to shoes and then divorce to love.
Yeah.
So last time we spoke, you were married and happily married. I re-listened to the episode and we talked all about it. And here we are and you're happily in love, but with someone else. Let's rewind. How did it happen?
Oh my gosh, I haven't actually talked about this in a long time. But I think fundamentally when things happen in a relationship or a marriage and knowing when to leave and when it's not right for you is so important.
Yeah. And a lot of people stay significantly longer than is healthy, I think.
Yeah. And I think I'm just very lucky in my scenario. It was an easier decision.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people, it's not.
Yeah.
And so I had gratitude in that. And I had a very swift exit, divorce, whatever you want to call it. So much that it actually almost did feel like it was a relationship, you know, that didn't work out.
Yeah.
And we had a fabulous wedding. Like, I'll never take that back. Like, it was wonderful.
Yeah, you had many great times, but the course had run its time.
Yeah, and to move on from that and meet somebody totally unexpected and very quickly.
And very opposite, I would say, in energy.
I feel like what's interesting is I met with my girlfriend who's also going through a divorce. And she was like, I don't know when you're ready to start dating again, but when you are, I have your next husband.
Stop it.
That's what she said, like verbatim.
And didn't you meet your first husband through a family member who said, whenever you're ready, like, I have someone?
Pretty much.
So, like, you have not been a Tinder, Raya, online girl.
I've never
For
been
such an
on
online
any.
personality, it's
I
so
know,
wild
I totally would.
that you've met
That would
nobody
be-
on the internet in that way.
That would be my jam for sure. But
so you were newly
set up.
divorced and
Yeah.
someone was ready to set you up.
Set us up. And it's interesting because in the first, 20 seconds of meeting him, I just, my whole body just like relaxed because I was like, I feel like this is my person. And I felt trust and I felt like I could be honest.
Yep.
Like I actually can't even remember what I expressed to him that night because I told him everything.
Yeah.
Like literally
Verbal diarrhea.
everything. I was like, here is my baggage right here. Take it. Leave
I'm just
it.
going to lay it out.
What
You
you
can let me
thinking?
know in 24 hours.
Exactly.
No offense either way, but I hope you take it.
And you hear all these people talk about relationships and they're
Yeah.
like, well, you want to be selective. And,
Yeah.
it's for me, it's like anything goes. And you do have to kind of trust your instinct. And the best thing I did do for myself in that situation was not feel jaded by the relationship I was coming out of.
Yep.
And I was really open. And so was he.
Yeah.
We were on the same frequency. And I thought that was like pretty special.
It's important to be
Yeah.
on the same frequency.
And he was coming out of a 5-year relationship as well.
Oh, interesting. So like a
And-
similar space.
Yeah. And almost the timing was the same. And so, Yeah, we just
And what year
really
was
meshed.
that you went on a first date?
That was in 2018.
2018. Okay.
Yeah,
Got
May
it.
of 2018. And then we got engaged in July of 2019.
Okay. I remember.
Do you
'Cause,
remember?
yes, I was so excited. And you guys are burners.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember we had a conversation and I was like, yeah,
Uh.
so for your wedding, you like Burning Man. We talked all about the vibes.
Yeah.
So you got engaged in 2019. We're now in 2023.
Million.
4?
20 million.
Not that
Yep.
there has to be, but are there wedding plans?
There were some wedding plans in the beginning.
Yeah.
And I think when you're really hyped up and excited and in that moment, you just want to be in the fantasy of it.
Of course.
And as a planner, or like,
Yes.
orchestrator of all things gorgeous,
100%.
you just
Ooh,
want
I like that. Wait, is that my new
Ooh,
title?
orchestrator.
Of
Yeah.
all things gorgeous.
or architect of all things gorgeous.
Ooh.
Yes, I love it.
I love this branding session.
Vibe architect.
Ooh, vibe
Right?
architect.
I
Because
like
it
that.
is. It is a vibe.
It is. But yeah, we were exploring, and on our podcast too, we were exploring, like a upscale Burning Man wedding outside,
Which
disco,
tracks 100%.
crazy, and then the COVID happened, and so many couples, as you know, it was just devastating because obviously it was a horrible time. But I think too, when you're looking forward to something and you don't feel like you have much control over when it's actually going to happen, or do you have to compromise and just still have the wedding and cut down on guests and money, and it's really a bummer.
It's complex, yeah.
Yeah, and so then the lawsuit goes, and what's really unique now is we've kind of Goldie Hawn and Kurt Russelled the situation in that we feel very married, even though we're not.
You act very married for whatever that, you know what I mean? Like,
he feels like my husband.
In my mind, it just you two and the dog. Like it's
That's us.
It's the
The
trinity
trio.
that is the trio, the trinity. Like
the three best
the
friends.
three of you. Like I feel like that's what it is. You know what I mean?
And we've really embraced this period, and again, being very lucky to not feel rushed.
Yeah.
To get married, especially with a lawsuit, especially with my financial situation and all I've been through with a lawsuit. It is not cheap, and we're just not in a place to really do that right now. And hopefully someday we will be.
And I think it's very interesting that you're being so transparent about it, because the fantasy of a wedding versus the reality of a wedding are two very different things, I think emotionally and I think financially. And a lot of people don't want to talk about the money, but weddings are expensive. Like
So
they
expensive.
add up quickly.
Yep.
The more people you have, the more money it is. And then you have the emotional component. You know what I mean? Like if you two feel solid, there isn't a need for a wedding. You know what I mean? But for some people, it's all they've dreamed about. And they put all their eggs in that basket. And I hope it does what it needs to do for them. But at the end of the day, you find someone you love, you build a life together. That's so special.
Yeah.
And if you can have the wedding of your dreams, whatever that is, like that's the icing on the cake, I feel like.
Totally agree. And it's important to put the blinders up a little bit.
Yeah.
Because everybody, is entitled to their opinion and has opinions. And even if it's with good intentions, feeling pressured to do something or feeling the rush of time or whatever it may be, it's so good to have to take inventory on your relationship. And what's interesting is that we do feel solid right now in each other, while there's parts of our life that are just like hanging by a tiny thread.
Yes.
It's you kind of appreciate the duality of it, and you choose to focus your energy on the things that are good and working, and all that other stuff exists, and two things can be true.
Yep.
But where the focus goes, energy flows.
Well, and if you're in a storm and he still is on the ship, you know what I mean? Like that
That would be tough.
says everything.
Yeah.
Like, yeah. And I think a lot of people don't realize in the world of what you're talking about when you talk about finances, like litigation is wildly expensive.
It's debilitating.
And it's been
in a lot of
3
ways.
years of that for you.
Yeah.
So you're trying to rediscover yourself while defending yourself all at your own personal expense for the brand you built yourself. You know what I mean? Like it's a lot to really think about and unpack. And that you said isn't even over.
No, we're still in active litigation, and
For how much, do you have an anticipation of how much longer before you can cut the cord, or is it?
Like right when you said that, I thought of the part from Sandlot where Squints is like, forever.
Oh, no.
Like, I hope it's not. But,
I hope it's not.
Oh my gosh.
I hope it's forever with Conrad, but not with this litigation.
In perpetuity.
Just throughout the universe.
But
that's going to be in your vows if you get married one day.
That's the only time I will use that word.
Pause for laughter and a little tear and then more laughter.
Pour out some of the alcohol. Yeah. And I don't know how long it will go. But the newest kind of element to it is that my former employer did file for bankruptcy. Chapter 5 of Chapter 11.
Of Chapter 11?
You
the
know,
whole
so
company?
It's the company. And we're just now kind of learning what that means. And
that means that
litigation is stayed at the moment.
Because of the bankruptcy?
Yes.
State is put on pause. Yeah.
Yeah. But it's like the way the stay works. I still have an appeal that I'm waiting to hear back on, which is revolving around the unpaid non-compete.
Yeah, the money owed.
Or the provision there, the 5-year provision. So we'll see. There's just a lot of moving parts, and it you just never know. And it's just as black and white as things seem.
Yep.
It's just not. It's never.
Were you their biggest brand?
You know, I don't know.
And this isn't like I'm just curious financially, like when you look at a business.
I don't actually know how to answer that because it's a house of brands, you know, and ultimately they do have financial filings online.
Sure.
So anybody could kind of go and look, but I don't think they're actually broken down specifically
by each collection.
Yeah. But what I do know is that in an industry like the wedding world, I've always taken a mindset of abundance.
Yep.
And I don't know where I got that from because being a gymnast growing up, I'm obviously a very competitive person.
Yeah.
But I think I've always had a more is more mentality with bridal. And I've always loved that there are unique designers and unique brides. And there's kind of space for everyone.
Yep.
And so I've never really understood the idea of withholding or preventing talent from being in an industry.
Correct. Because there's room for everyone.
It seems like there should be.
Yeah, I think there is.
I'm stuck there.
I think when you're very new or you're very lonely or you're very scared, you don't see the room for everyone. But like your voice is so distinctive, like
it's
a
loud.
Hayley Paige dress and bright and bubbly and cheerful. But there are other voices that are quiet and demure. And that voice is for someone who wants that.
Totally.
You know what I mean? Like there are no two designers that are the same, no two weddings that are the same.
It's
because
amazing.
no two people are the same. And there is room for everyone. But part of me sadistically feels like, well, good for them for, bankrupt. It's like awful to say that because I love you and I don't want to say that in spite of them. But it's like when you hurt someone, like good things don't typically come from that. And if you collaborate and you find a way, like, good things could have come from that. In terms of your world, your non-compete is up in 2 years.
No, 5.
5 from now.
5 from 2022, so it's until 2027.
I thought it was 5 from then.
No.
Oh,
it's until 2027.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which gives me a lot of time to make a lot of shoes.
100%. I mean, like so many shoes.
And maybe other things. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe some pottery. Wait, I want for Christmas, I would like some pottery. For my birthday, please send me a piece of pottery. Would you ever, when that ends, go back, when it's all clean and gone and behind you and legal and safe, would you go back into wedding dresses?
There will never be a moment in my life where that is not my biggest dream. And again, going back to like the idea of two things can be true.
Yep.
I feel like you can move forward and you can get into new spaces and explore new landscapes and still have a deep-rooted love and affection and passion for your original craft.
Yeah.
And so being graceful and respecting the situation I'm in, the court ruling, all this stuff, it is what it is kind of.
Yeah, it's beyond your control.
If the appeal comes back, great. If there's a settlement, great. It's just staying open to whatever
what it's going to be
is the possibility within my control. Like there's so much not in my control. But the day that I am allowed, and it's there, I will absolutely, with star beams.
Yeah.
I will actually probably combust into sparkle.
Yeah, of course you will. You'll be gone and then reappear in a dress.
Exactly.
Are you actively sketching or are you not? Like it's that part of your brain, you're like shoe focused, life focused, and that's kind of on in the back end.
Unseen hours are like so appreciated in my household.
Okay.
So I've come to really appreciate that more now because when you're not allowed to do something, out in the open and put
It's
it on
all you
social.
wanna do.
And
Yeah.
you have to fulfill that need. And
Yeah.
and I always say that creating is one of the highest forms of hope, because when it feels like something is being taken or you're not allowed to do something, to be able to dream and still fulfill in a way that just only you see it, you know, and only you feel it.
It's only you,
really
literally.
special.
Yeah.
So, and also I think it helps just being creative in the shoe world and keeping up with what are people liking? What are they loving? You know, I can go on all my favorite Instagram channels. I can still follow all my favorite bridal designers. I can, you know, I can still be a part of it. I can still celebrate my friends that are in the industry.
Yeah.
And it keeps me close.
Yep.
And, you know, it's just a moment in time that is really unique.
Yeah. I love your outlook on that. And I now need a pair of these shoes, by the way. Let me tell you, when I put on a heel, 9 men's, what is that in women's? Are you 2 or 3
For
down?
For us, it would be like 11, I think.
2 size difference.
About 2 sizes.
Why is that men and like why do you know? Why
I
the shoe
actually
sizes like clothes size, shoe size, like why? Like why is it so confusing that you have a whole different range of sizes than I do?
I think it has to do with the last and the mold and probably the initial framework of shoes and how it's like the frame of a female form versus a male form. You know, like they're always a little bit different in the SKUs and the patterns and the grading and all that.
Yeah.
But I know a lot of brands do unisex.
Yeah.
Which I think is cool because it, you know,
wear what makes you happy.
Anyone can wear any shoes.
Yes.
Hello, 2023.
100%. 100%. And they should.
Yes, I agree. But I'm going to need to actually, maybe what I'll do is I'll send you a pair so that we can test it out, make sure you like the fit. And then, yeah, we'll mold it to you. But there's a lot of shoes to be made.
I'm ready. I do have a wide foot, so I don't know if that's in your range.
I do too. I think it's just, you know, it's interesting because everybody's shape is different. So it's really hard to get that right.
Yeah. Planning a wedding can be stressful, but Generation Tux understands. They've designed a suit and tuxedo rental process that you can complete entirely from home. It's easy, convenient, and stress-free. Forget about store visits, last-minute pickups, and ill-fitting suits. With Generation Tux, you'll choose from over 25 premium wool suits and tuxedos, customizable with hundreds of accessories and colors. Plus, you'll get free shipping and delivery 14 days before your wedding. Free replacements, prepaid returns, and amazing customer service. Visit generationtux.com for the perfect suit or tuxedo delivered straight to your door. We have a couple questions from fans.
Rapid fire.
Rapid fire. All right, Michelle in California wants to know, how do you stay so optimistic and positive when things are looking so dark?
Hi, Michelle. This is a great question. I think it's important to take inventory on your life. And so much of life is lived through comparison. So giving yourself a chance to kind of pick and choose the things that do bring you joy and are blessings in your life is really important. Like it's actually an exercise to do every day. And when I was
activity, like you have to do it.
You have to do it. You can't
just
first it starts with your brain and your thinking, because you do want that to be a healthy emotional home for yourself. Like you don't want to get caught doom scrolling in your head.
Yeah.
But choosing activities and doing things that will actually feel productive is a great, I shouldn't call it a distraction, but in a way it does divert your energy. Like I always feel great after a walk. I always feel great after a little workout. I always feel great after like a wine night with a girlfriend or a guy friend, you know, like getting out of your environment and your space. And a lot of times it's important to look at the people you're surrounding yourself with, because if there's somebody in your life where you feel like you just feel negative, it's important to edit.
Yeah.
And
to think about it, to look at it.
Yeah, because why waste your time trying to convince somebody who's already committed to misunderstanding you or committed to just making you feel bad?
Yeah.
Getting that there. Okay. But and I also feel that when life starts to really build up and you feel almost constrained, there are moments to be really, really creative. It's almost like demanded of you to be more creative when you're limited. Whereas when the world's an open oyster and you have all these options and all these things to do, it almost feels like a disadvantage, because like you almost feel like, well, if I do that, I won't get to do that. And how can I decide? There's too many options.
It's more overwhelming.
Yeah. And so I kind of looked at the box that I felt like I was in and said, okay, I need to get out of the box. Like what is the one thing I can do allowed to do that will bring me some joy and make me feel like I'm creating for women and making them feel sparkly and amazing. And for me, that was shoes. But I think you can kind of put that same frame or mindset onto almost anything.
Yeah.
I mean, grief is really tough because when you're dealing with deep grief, loss of a loved one, like a catastrophic situation, you're the only one that's really experiencing it on your level.
Yep.
And you're basing it off of your own experiences. And it is your responsibility, I think, in giving yourself time to really grieve. And
what you need.
What you need. And that unexpressed love, it deserves a place. But I think once you kind of unpack and decide where you're going to go or what baggage you're going to take with you, having the tolerance kind of built up in handling tough situations or difficult situations or moments that things didn't work out the way you did, you're going to wear someday like a badge of honor.
Yeah.
And you're going to be able to deal with other things even better with what you've experienced.
Because you've practiced working through it.
You have.
Yeah.
It's like a muscle memory.
Yep.
And, it's hard to see it in those moments, but I do feel like hanging in there for yourself and finding the worth and that, Ryan Holiday says the obstacle is the way. I really resonate with that a lot of ways.
The obstacle is the way. Ooh, I'm going to say
put
that a couple times. Yeah. And I'd be like, why? But you're like, no, that's not the question.
Get out of my way.
Yes, literally. Climb over it, dig under it. We have one last question, and it is from Danielle in Minneapolis.
Okay.
And she asks, you've had some high highs and some low lows. I'm just getting started. What's your advice for a newbie in the industry?
A newbie in the industry. Hi, Danielle. I like the mindset of abundance approach and making sure that you're not comparing your beginning to somebody else's middle.
And to clarify, abundance versus scarcity.
Correct.
Meaning there is enough for all of us versus nobody wants this.
Yes.
There's not enough for me. There's not a need for me. Just to clarify for people who.
Good point. I always just jump to that and it's good to explain it.
Yes.
But yeah, because I think a lot of doubts that we have in our capabilities or do we belong here and that imposter syndrome that comes in is all these things we're telling ourselves.
Yep.
Like, oh, I'm not doing enough on social. I'm not over here. I'm not getting the celebrity. I'm not.
Yeah.
And the problem is we are actually comparing ourselves to people that either could already be further along than we are, right? Have had 10,000 plus hours ahead of us.
Yeah.
And it's just really not fair to yourself to do that.
To play the comparison game.
No, it's good to just compare yourself one day to the day before. Like bit by bit, baby steps aren't for babies. And consistently start showing up every day, especially on the days you don't feel like it, because I feel like motivation is kind of overrated. I like the term discipline because discipline is something that's required on days where you're not feeling like showing up for yourself or your business or your craft or whatever. And then you somehow still do something
because of discipline, not motivation.
Yeah. And it becomes a pattern in some way.
Okay.
So that would be my advice. But the truth is, I think the further you go in your career, the bigger the gap becomes between the highs and the lows.
Interesting.
And I think that's just the risk reward of as you grow and become more visible or as your brand grows, you do have more to lose.
Yeah.
And when I look at my situation, like it does feel like a massive Titanic fall from grace. It really does.
Yeah.
And it almost felt like an apocalypse of a career.
Yeah.
But the idea of starting new, you can kind of relate it to a divorce and saying like there is a new love and there is a new way forward.
And there's more to look forward to.
Always more
and
to
build. Yeah, I love it. Well, this has been so much fun.
We
Let's
didn't
not
even talk
wait
about you
7
enough.
more years. Me, this isn't about me.
Yes, it is.
Where can people find you on the internet?
On the internet. I'm still on Instagram.
I know that in 2 different places.
2 different. I know it's really weird with the 2 accounts, but
I know. I'm like, oh, ping pong.
Which one? And then am I sharing too much of the same? I don't know. But yeah, All That Glitters on the Gram, was our podcast account. Maybe
and that's
someday.
more coupley?
I feel like it's more personal.
Okay.
But you never know. Maybe the podcast will come back someday.
I know.
Maybe
Because
this
you
is
had the
inspiring.
podcast. Good. Yes.
Would you come on it if I did it?
100%.
Okay. I've got one guest.
You've got, and
And
where
it's the
there's
best
one,
guest.
there's more.
And
so
then,
all that glitters on the gold, all
the
that
gold.
glitters on the gram.
on the gram. And then, our brand business account is She Is Cheval.
Yes.
Which is our brand name.
Yep.
And then
And that's where we find shoes.
And then I have a website, which is
Okay.
sheischeval.com.
Perfect.
But yeah, that's pretty much it. I'm trying to do TikTok. I'm trying to do YouTube, all this other stuff, but it's just like, it is a lot.
It's
So,
a lot. And if what's meant for you will find you.
Yes,
So
exactly.
I think you're doing enough at the moment.
Thank you.
But, if you're hearing this and you're curious, maybe there's a TikTok. Search for it.
Yeah, there is a TikTok. She is Cheval.
There it is.
Actually, still have my original TikTok.
Oh.
With the original
We will
handling.
not talk about that.
I got that back. I don't know how.
Oh, wait, you got that?
I got it back.
I can't with this. We're not
I'm
starting
like,
this
what?
conversation again.
Arbitrary.
You may have A but not B.
Yeah.
And you have to pass through C to get to D. This is too much. Well, I adore you, and I look forward to watching the beautiful things that you create as we move forward in life.
Thank you. Love you.
Love you.
Weddings-ish.
So excited. Now it's time for Ask Jove, where I answer your questions all about love, life, celebrations, fiancés, parties, travel, really anything you want to know. We've got you covered. I'm joined in studio by my dear friend Sloan, and we are so excited to ask Jove.
All right, Jove. Question today. Family drama alert.
Oh, Lord. Family.
Eloping to avoid family madness?
Wow.
Ooh.
That's an extreme.
So Andrea from Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
All right. She and her partner have this crazy idea of eloping to dodge all wedding stress and costs.
I understand.
Yep. It sounds tempting, but some family members are really excited about their big day.
Most family members are.
Andrea and her partner are considering spots like the beach, a cute chapel, or even Europe. How do they handle this without making their loved ones upset? And how do they keep their sanity intact?
I think that this is a really delicate question because weddings are about love, and all the people that love you want to be there and they want to support you. And I think there is confusion if you don't have a space for all of those people to come together. And you want to be mindful about their feelings, but at the same time, you have to be true to yourself. So if your guest list is running away and your budget is small, but the guest list is large, the reality is you have to find a way to make it work. The highest cost at your wedding is food, beverage, decor, staffing, space. About 50, 60% is a per person cost. So the more people, the more money. And the more people, the more money, the more choices, the more stress. For sure. So if they want to elope, I understand that. And something in your gut is telling you to do it. I think you should lean into that. I think you should say, why do I want to do this? What benefit does it have to me? And what detriment does it have to me? Am I going to regret eloping? And if your literal body says no, then you do it. And you have to have those hard conversations with the people that matter to you. But I think everyone that loves you will understand. I mean, weddings add up quick. And it's hard to say no, and it's hard to draw lines. And it could take a year or two to plan, and that's a million decisions on top of your life, your work, your friendships, all the things you're doing every day. This is additional. Yeah, if your body and your gut are saying to elope, then that's what you should do. You should listen to yourself and your gut and your fiance. It's a multiple person decision here, but you should trust that. You should honor that. Society wants you to have a big wedding. Society wants you to spend all this money, but what do you want? What matters to you? And if the resources are finite or limited, what are the future goals? Do you want a house? Do you want children? That's money, 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 money. And so if the pot of money is staying one size, then you have to really figure out and prioritize how you're going to spend it. It sounds like you want to elope. I think you should totally do it, but don't underestimate the work when that elopement is not nearby. If you're now doing a destination elopement, it's definitely less work, but there are still logistics, there's still planning, there's still budget. It's just on a much smaller scale. And since you're in Dallas, what about eloping at a Whataburger? I mean, I would love that. Come have some chicken tenders and gravy and toast.
And really good French fries.
Yes. Oh my God, that would be cute. Should we elope at a Whataburger?
Let's do it.
I mean, your husband and my fiance probably wouldn't be happy about that.
I mean, but they would also enjoy the eating.
I mean, now I'm very hungry and all I want is Whataburger, and we don't have it in New York.
None in New York.
But I hope that's helpful. I think it's really... This is the beginning of the rest of your life. And so how you have conversations about important decisions matters. And I think it's a hard one, but it's an important one. So sit down, make time, make space, be honest, and follow your gut.
Thanks so much, Andrea.
Yeah, thanks, Andrea. You've got this. Well, that's it for today, and wasn't that fun? Don't forget to send your questions. Again, any questions, send them our way to hi@jovemeyer.com, and maybe I will answer them on air. If you can, send a voice memo. I love to hear your voice.
Weddings-ish.
Thank you again for listening or watching Weddings-ish with Jove. This episode is brought to you by Generation Tux, the perfect suit or tuxedo delivered straight to your door. GenerationTux.com. If you liked today's episode, please subscribe and leave a review on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. We're also super grateful to Mel Flannery for the music on the podcast. She created, produced, and designed all of the music. And don't forget, you can watch Weddings-ish with Jove on Love Stories TV, YouTube, or streaming TV channel. Visit lovestoriestv.com/live for the list of streaming apps.
Weddings-ish.